Millionaire CEO, shocked when shelter triplets recognize him. 3 heartbreaking words leave him sobbing. Today, we're sharing the remarkable true story of Alexander Reed, a tech genius worth billions who thought he had everything until 3 identical little boys said the 3 words that would shatter his carefully constructed world and change all their lives forever. If you've ever wondered whether some connections are simply meant to be, this story will leave you breathless. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any of our life-changing stories, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let's discover how a reluctant visit to a children's shelter led to a miracle no one saw coming. The morning sun glints off the glass and steel Reed Innovations Tower, casting golden reflections across Seattle's skyline. On the 50th floor, Alexander Reed stands motionless before the floor-to-ceiling windows, surveying the city he's helped transform with his AI technology. At 45, he possesses everything society deems valuable: $4.2 billion in personal wealth, global influence, and a reputation for technological wizardry that borders on prophetic. Yet, as he adjusts his immaculate charcoal tie, the reflection staring back reveals eyes that have grown cold with success. Their unusual gray color, once vibrant, now seems muted behind the wall he's built between himself and the world. "Mr. Reed," comes a precise voice from the doorway. The board is assembled in the virtual conference room. Alexander turns to face Jessica Chen, his chief of staff for the past decade. Her tailored navy suit and perfect posture mirror his own exactitude. 10 years by his side have given her an uncanny ability to read his moods, though he'd never admit how valuable that skill has become. "Thank you, Jessica," he replies, his voice carrying the refined edge of someone accustomed to being heard the first time. "Let's not keep them waiting." Alexander's office, like the man himself, is a study in calculated minimalism. Sleek surfaces in chrome and glass, cutting-edge technology seamlessly integrated into the architecture, nothing personal on display. No photographs, no mementos, nothing to suggest a life outside these walls. The only color comes from the Seattle skyline beyond the windows and the holographic displays showing Reed Innovations' latest AI breakthroughs. He settles into his ergonomic chair as the wall transforms into a virtual conference room. 7 board members appear, their home offices and corporate backgrounds creating a patchwork of power behind them. "Alexander," begins Warren Simmons, the board chairman, his silver hair impeccable even through the virtual interface. "Thank you for making time for this unscheduled meeting." Alexander's expression doesn't change. "What's the emergency, Warren?" "My development team is waiting for sign-off on the new neural interface." Warren clears his throat. "It's about the Baden acquisition and the resulting press." A financial news headline appears in the shared space. "Reed Innovations devours another startup. The tech cannibal strikes again." The market responded positively, Alexander states flatly. "Baden's technology integrates perfectly with our AI ecosystem. Their shareholders are satisfied." "The financials aren't the issue," interjects Meera Patel, the newest board member, her voice less deferential than the others. "It's the public perception. This is the 3rd acquisition this quarter where the founding team has walked away completely." Alexander's jaw tightens imperceptibly. "We acquire companies for their technology, not their personnel." "And that's exactly the problem," Warren says. "The robot CEO narrative is gaining traction. Your brilliance is unquestioned, Alexander, but your public image affects our ability to attract top talent and maintain consumer trust." For a moment, silence fills the virtual space. Jessica, standing quietly at the edge of the room, watches Alexander's reflection in the darkened window. A muscle flexes in his jaw, a tell only she would recognize. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Alexander finally asks. Jessica steps forward. "If I may, Mr. Reed, I've prepared several PR opportunities that could help address these concerns." With a gesture, she brings up a sleek presentation. "We have speaking engagements at Stanford and MIT, the TechCrunch Humanitarian Award nomination, and the annual contribution to Hope Haven Children's Center. The Children's Center donation is particularly opportune," Warren adds, leaning forward. "They're planning a small ceremony this week to recognize major donors. Your presence would speak volumes." Alexander's expression darkens. We donate to numerous charitable organizations. Send the usual press release. This needs to be different, Mira insists. People respond to personal engagement. The photographs of you actually visiting the center, speaking with the children, I don't do orphanages. The words escape before Alexander can contain them, sharp and absolute. The board members freeze. Jessica's eyes widen slightly. In 10 years, she's never heard that tone from him. Warren recovers first. Alexander, I understand you have priorities, but this is about the company's image. Hope Haven is the most visible of our charitable initiatives, and I said no. Alexander's voice is ice now. Find another photo opportunity. The atmosphere shifts palpably. Several board members exchange glances through their video feeds. Alexander, says Warren carefully, the board feels strongly about this. Reed Innovations Foundation is Hope Haven's largest donor. Your absence has been noted and questioned. In light of the current PR situation, we need to be strategic. Alexander stares at the disembodied faces of his board, calculating rapidly. He recognizes the subtle shift in power dynamics. They're not making a suggestion. His fingers tap once, twice on the polished desk surface. Fine, schedule it. 2 hours maximum. Relief ripples across the virtual room. The meeting continues with quarterly projections and development timelines, but Alexander's focus has fractured. When the board members finally disconnect, the office falls into silence. Jessica approaches his desk carefully. I'll schedule the Hope Haven visit for tomorrow afternoon. Alexander doesn't respond, still staring at the now blank wall. You've never mentioned any aversion to the Children's Center before, she says, tentative but direct. The approach that's made her indispensable. It's irrelevant. Alexander turns back to his screens. Jessica hesitates, an unusual behavior that immediately catches his attention. What is it? He asks, raising an eyebrow. Nothing, just... She chooses her words carefully. You never talk about it, but I've done my research. You grew up in the system. Alexander's eyes flash, the first genuine emotion he's displayed all morning. That life no longer exists. Set up the visit if you must. Jessica nods, recognizing the dismissal. I'll handle everything. 2 hours maximum, as you requested. After she leaves, Alexander sits motionless, the afternoon light casting longer shadows across his office. Finally, he opens his desk drawer, removing something he hasn't looked at in months. A worn photograph of a teenage boy with the same unusual gray eyes as his own, arms slung around a younger Alexander's shoulders. Both are smiling, something Alexander rarely does now. I'm sorry, Samuel, he whispers, before carefully returning the photo to its hiding place. His computer chimes with a notification, an email from Eleanor Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Technologies, with the subject line, Time to talk about the future. Alexander closes the notification without opening it and turns back to the cityscape, his empire spread before him. Tomorrow, he'll have to face a past he spent decades burying under achievements and acquisitions. And for the first time in years, Alexander Reed, the man who controls everything, feels the distinct sensation of events slipping beyond his control. Hope Haven Children's Center stands in stark contrast to Alexander's sleek corporate world. The renovated Victorian building wears a fresh coat of sky blue paint, but can't hide its age. Colorful murals decorate the exterior walls, children's handprints forming a rainbow, painted trees reaching toward real ones in the small playground. The autumn afternoon bathes everything in golden light as crimson and amber leaves drift across the walkway. It's well maintained, but clearly operating on a limited budget, with weathered play equipment and mismatched furniture visible through the windows. Maya Santos greets them at the entrance, the 38-year-old director whose no-nonsense demeanor is softened by laugh lines around her eyes. She wears practical clothes, a simple blouse and dark pants, with a lanyard holding various keys and ID badges. Her dark hair is pulled back, and she carries a tablet filled with the center's never-ending to-do list. Jessica follows Alexander closely, maintaining her professional composure while eyeing her boss with subtle concern. In the background, children of various ages move through the space, a teenager helping younger kids with homework, 2 girls arguing over a board game, and in the corner playroom, barely visible through a doorway, 3 identical little boys with unusual gray eyes stack blocks methodically, occasionally glancing toward the entrance. Alexander feels increasingly uncomfortable as memories ambush him with each step through the facility. The institutional smell, disinfectant mixed with cafeteria food, triggers visceral flashbacks he's suppressed for decades. Meanwhile, Maya observes his discomfort with growing skepticism, challenging his detached demeanor with direct questions about his company's commitment to these children beyond financial donations. "The PR team mentioned photos with the children for your company newsletter," Maya says, her tone carefully neutral. "But I assume you'd like to actually learn about what we do here first?" Alexander checks his watch. "A brief overview would be appropriate." Maya leads them through the building, pointing out classrooms, dormitories, and common areas. She explains their programs with genuine passion: educational support, counseling services, family reunification efforts. Alexander nods mechanically, maintaining physical and emotional distance from everything around him. "Our biggest challenge is helping children maintain a sense of belonging while they're here," Maya explains, pausing by a wall covered with children's artwork. "Many have been separated from siblings in the system." Alexander's phone buzzes. A text from his COO. "Blackwood making moves. Share acquisition pattern detected. Call ASAP." "Is there a private space I could use for a call?" Alexander asks, already reaching for his phone. Maya's expression tightens. "Of course. You can use my office while I prepare the children for the donation presentation." In Maya's cluttered office, Alexander conducts urgent business while staring at the wall of photos behind her desk. Maya with different children over the years, graduation ceremonies, holiday celebrations, a makeshift family built from the fragments of broken ones. When he emerges 15 minutes later, Alexander notices Maya watching 3 identical boys who have moved to the main playroom. The triplets are building an elaborate structure from colored blocks, their movements synchronized despite working on different sections. "They're remarkable," Maya says softly. "Lucas, Noah, and Ethan. They've been with us 6 months. Identical triplets are extremely rare, especially in the system." Something about the boys, perhaps the unusual shade of their eyes or the determined set of their small jaws, makes Alexander pause. Where did they come from? Their case is complicated. Records were mishandled. All we know is their father died when they were 2, mother unknown. Maya studies Alexander's face. "The donation ceremony is ready whenever you are." In the community room, children gather as Alexander mechanically presents an oversized check to Hope Haven. Cameras flash while he delivers a pre-written speech about community responsibility and Reed Innovation's commitment to social causes. His eyes repeatedly drift to the triplets, who sit cross-legged on the floor, whispering among themselves. As Alexander prepares to leave, shaking hands with staff members and checking his watch, the triplets suddenly abandon their spot. Before anyone can intercept them, they run across the room straight toward Alexander. "You're our daddy," the smallest one says clearly, reaching for Alexander's hand. Time stops. The room falls silent. The photographer captures the moment. 3 identical faces with striking gray eyes staring up at the frozen tech billionaire. Alexander stares at the boys, particularly their eyes, the exact same unusual shade of gray as his own and Samuel's. His face drains of color as the world narrows to just these 3 small figures before him. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Reed," Maya says, rushing forward. "Lucas, Noah, Ethan, that's not appropriate." She gently guides the boys back, but they resist, their eyes never leaving Alexander's face. "They sometimes do this with visitors," Maya explains, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "They've been hoping for adoption, and sometimes they get imaginative." "Who are they?" Alexander asks, his voice barely audible. "What's their full name?" "Morgan," Maya replies, surprised by his intensity. "Their last name is Morgan." Alexander's hand moves unconsciously to his jacket pocket, where he keeps the photo of his brother. Samuel Morgan. He'd reverted to their birth name after leaving foster care, while Alexander had kept their adoptive name, Reed. "I need their file," Alexander says, his CEO voice failing him. "All of it. Now." Maya starts to object, but something in his expression stops her. "That would require proper authorization. Get me the forms." Alexander turns to Jessica, who's watching with undisguised shock. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. Cancel everything. As Maya leads the reluctant triplets away, the smallest one, Ethan, looks back at Alexander with an expression of absolute certainty, as if he's found something long lost. And Alexander Reed, who built an empire on logical algorithms and predictable patterns, feels the foundation of his carefully constructed life begin to shift beneath his feet. Maya's cluttered office feels too small for the magnitude of what's unfolding. Children's artwork covers the walls alongside degrees in social work and child psychology. The afternoon rain has started, pattering against the windows and casting the room in a gray haze that matches Alexander's mood. A desk lamp provides the only warm light, illuminating scattered files and a half-empty coffee mug with "World's Okayest Social Worker" printed on it. Lucas, Noah, and Ethan sit on a worn couch against the wall, their identical faces solemn as they watch the adults. Maya has given them coloring books, but they've abandoned them in favor of studying Alexander with uncanny intensity. Despite being identical, their personalities show through subtle differences. Lucas slightly forward on the cushion, clearly the leader. Noah with a thoughtful furrow between his brows. Ethan, the smallest, staying closest to his brothers. Jessica stands near the door, fielding urgent messages on her tablet while occasionally glancing at her boss with unconcealed concern. She's never seen Alexander like this, his usual calculated precision replaced by something raw and unfamiliar. "Mr. Reed, I understand you're interested in the boys' case, but I need to emphasize that their information is confidential," Maya says, protective instincts clearly engaged. "Without proper authorization—" "My brother's name was Samuel Morgan," Alexander interrupts, his voice uncharacteristically unsteady. "He died 8 years ago. These boys have our eyes, an unusual genetic trait. It's statistically improbable." Maya's expression shifts from protective to cautious curiosity. "The boy's father was named Samuel. He died of an overdose when they were 2. Alexander's phone rings again, his COO's urgent code. He silences it without looking. "I need to know more. Who was their mother? What happened after Samuel died? How did they end up here?" "I've only been director for 3 years, Maya explains. "Their file is incomplete. There was a jurisdictional transfer issue when the county systems merged. Records were lost." Alexander's analytical mind kicks in, grasping for control through information. "I want DNA tests, immediately." "That requires court approval for minors in state custody," Maya begins. "Then get it. I have attorneys who can expedite the process." Alexander turns to Jessica. "Call Mercer. Tell him I need emergency legal intervention for a potential family claim." Jessica nods, already dialing. "Mr. Reed," Maya says carefully, "even if there is a biological connection, these boys have been through tremendous instability. 5 foster homes in 4 years before coming to us. They need consistency, not—" "Not what?" Alexander challenges. "Not someone who's interested in them as a curiosity rather than as children who need commitment." Alexander stares at her for a long moment, then turns to the triplets. "May I speak with them?" Maya hesitates before nodding. "Briefly." Alexander approaches the couch, his usual commanding presence diminished as he kneels to the boy's level. This close, the resemblance is even more striking. The distinctive gray eyes, the shape of their jaws, even the way Noah tilts his head slightly when thinking, just like Samuel used to. "Hello," Alexander says awkwardly. "I'm Alexander Reed." "I'm Lucas," says the boldest one immediately. "That's Noah, and that's Ethan. Are you really our uncle?" Alexander blinks, startled by the direct question. "I don't know yet. Why do you ask that?" "We have a picture," Ethan says softly. "From before." "What picture?" Maya asks, surprised. Lucas reaches into his pocket and pulls out a worn, folded photo. It shows a younger Samuel holding 3 newborn infants in a hospital. Written on the back, "Samuel with Lucas, Noah and Ethan Morgan." Alexander's hand trembles slightly as he takes the photo. "Where did you get this?" "It was in our stuff," Noah explains. "We keep it hidden, so nobody takes it away." Alexander studies the image of his brother, sober, proud, younger than when he'd last seen him. "Samuel never told me he had children." "We don't have anyone," Lucas says matter-of-factly. "Just us." Jessica appears at Alexander's shoulder. Mr. Reed, I have Judge Winters on the line. She can authorize expedited DNA testing given the circumstances. Within hours, a private lab technician arrives at Hope Haven. The testing procedure is quick, cheek swabs for all 4 of them. The lab tech, generously compensated for after-hours service, promises results within 24 hours. Emergency processing, Alexander explains to Maya's raised eyebrow. Money talks. And what happens if they are your nephews? Maya asks quietly, while the boys are distracted by Jessica, who's surprisingly good with children for someone who claims to dislike them. What are your intentions? Before Alexander can answer, his phone rings again, this time with a special ringtone he can't ignore. Eleanor Blackwood's direct line. I need to take this, he says, stepping into the hallway. Alexander. Eleanor's smooth voice fills his ear. Your absence at Reed Innovations today has created quite the opportunity. The board is concerned. Eleanor, I don't have time. Always rushing, she interrupts. That was your problem even as a brilliant young engineer. Never taking time to see the full chessboard. My offer still stands, but not indefinitely. What are you talking about? Alexander demands. I've acquired 12% of your company's shares today alone. Your investors are nervous about your sudden distraction, whatever it is. Alexander's mind races, torn between the corporate crisis and the 3 small boys watching him through Maya's office window. We'll talk tomorrow, he says finally. Don't wait too long, Eleanor warns before disconnecting. Alexander returns to find the triplets building a Lego structure that remarkably resembles the Reed Innovations Tower. We're building your building, Noah announces. We saw it on the computer. It's very accurate, Alexander says, genuinely impressed. Ethan approaches, tugging Alexander's sleeve. Are you going to leave now? Something in the small boy's voice, the careful neutrality that comes from expecting disappointment, breaks through Alexander's remaining defenses. No, he says, surprising himself. Not yet. Alexander turns to Jessica. Clear my schedule for tomorrow. The Beijing investors, she begins. The company will have to wait, he says, watching the boys continue their meticulous construction. For once, the company will have to wait. The contrast couldn't be more striking. Reed Innovations' sleek, glass-walled boardroom with its panoramic view of Seattle's skyline versus the cozy reading nook at Hope Haven, where Alexander now splits his time. In the corporate world, holographic displays project market analyses and acquisition defenses, while at Hope Haven, children's books and handmade decorations create a sanctuary from the high-stakes business warfare. Thursday unfolds as a study in duality. Alexander moves between worlds that never should have intersected, from emergency board meetings where his leadership is being questioned to quiet moments with 3 boys who may be his last living family. Marcus Mercer, Alexander's silver-haired lead attorney, spreads custody paperwork across the polished conference table. Assuming the DNA confirms your relationship, we can file for emergency kinship placement. However, there are significant hurdles. Such as? Alexander asks, already scanning the documents with the same intensity he applies to corporate contracts. Your lifestyle, for one. The court will evaluate your suitability as a guardian. Your work schedule, home environment, support system, and personal history will all be scrutinized. Mercer pauses. Including your own time in foster care. Alexander's jaw tightens. That was decades ago. Courts take family separation seriously. You'll need to demonstrate why these boys would be better with you than in their current placement. Before Alexander can respond, Jacob Wells, Eleanor Blackwood's smooth-talking representative, is escorted in by Jessica. Mr. Reed, Jacob says, his practiced smile not reaching his eyes. I apologize for the interruption, but Ms. Blackwood felt an in-person delivery was appropriate. He places a formal-looking envelope on the table. Blackwood Technologies has officially filed notice of intent to acquire controlling interest in Reed Innovations. Alexander doesn't touch the envelope. Tell Eleanor she's wasting her time. Ms. Blackwood anticipated your response. Jacob's smile widens. She also asked me to convey that she knows about your personal situation. She wonders if you can effectively manage both a hostile takeover defense and a complex custody battle. After Wells departs, Alexander turns to Jessica. How did she find out about the boys so quickly? Unknown, sir, but the photographer from yesterday works with several news outlets. Buy the photos. All of them. Alexander checks his watch. I need to get to Hope Haven. At the Children's Center, the triplets have been told about the possible family connection. Maya has prepared them carefully, managing expectations while acknowledging the significance of possibly finding family. Lucas approaches the situation like a negotiation. If you're our uncle, does that mean we'd live with you? Noah is full of analysis. Your building has 53 floors. Would we live at the top? That would be 734 feet high, approximately. Ethan, the quietest, simply watches Alexander, as if searching for something in his face. Alexander, accustomed to commanding boardrooms, finds himself surprisingly awkward. We're still figuring things out. First, we need the test results. Maya observes from a distance, her expression cautious but not unkind. They've had people come and go. Be careful with their expectations. As afternoon turns to evening, Alexander joins the boys for their regular story time. He meant to check emails during this period, but finds himself drawn into The Little Prince, as Maya reads with expressive voices for each character. His phone vibrates constantly, urgent messages from the board, updates on Blackwood's maneuvers, media inquiries about his sudden absence. All feels strangely distant compared to the immediate reality of three small boys gradually edging closer to him on the reading nook bench. When Maya is called away for an emergency with another child, Alexander awkwardly takes over reading duty. His formal tone gradually softens as the story progresses. During a crucial virtual board meeting Alexander takes from Maya's office, Ethan has a nightmare. The boys' cries echo through the building, disrupting Alexander's defense of his leadership strategy. One moment, Alexander tells the board, muting the call. He finds Ethan huddled under blankets, trembling. Bad dream? Alexander asks, perching awkwardly on the edge of the bed. Ethan nods, tears streaking his face. The shadow monsters came back. Alexander remembers his own childhood nightmares after losing his parents, how Samuel would help him through them. I used to have bad dreams too when I was your age. You did? Ethan looks skeptical. My brother, your father, taught me a trick. Alexander draws imaginary lines on Ethan's palm. He said our hands were secret maps, and if I traced the right path before sleeping, the bad dreams couldn't find me. He demonstrates the technique Samuel had invented, a simple mindfulness exercise disguised as magic. Ethan's breathing gradually steadies as he follows along. Unknown to Alexander, the board meeting video feed has remained active. The directors watch in astonished silence as the notorious robot CEO gently comforts a child. When Alexander returns to the call, he notices their expressions. Is there a problem? Warren Simmons clears his throat. None at all. In fact, I think we're seeing a side of you that's illuminating. Alexander straightens his tie, embarrassed but resolute. Family comes first from now on. That's non-negotiable. Later that night, Alexander finds himself reading bedtime stories to the boys instead of reviewing quarterly projections. His phone chimes with a text from Maya. DNA results expected tomorrow morning. Also, you're doing better than you think. For the first time in decades, Alexander Reed feels a sense of purpose disconnected from market share or technological innovation, and it terrifies him. The Family Services Department office feels intentionally designed to strip away dignity, harsh fluorescent lighting that misses no flaw, outdated furniture with torn edges, and the distinct smell of industrial cleaner that fails to mask decades of desperation. Outside, a gray Friday morning mirrors the sterile bureaucracy within. Mrs. Hendricks, a veteran social worker with steel-gray hair and eyes that have witnessed every variety of human tragedy, watches Alexander with professional detachment. Her desk is organized chaos, stacks of files representing shattered families and children caught in the system's machinery. Jessica sits beside Alexander, taking notes with practiced efficiency while occasionally glancing at him with concern. She's never seen her boss this unguarded, his customary armor of wealth and authority useless in this environment. The DNA results are conclusive, Mrs. Hendricks continues, tapping the folder. 99.9% probability that you are the biological uncle of Lucas Noah and Ethan Morgan. But before we discuss placement options, you need to understand their history. Alexander nods, his expression carefully controlled. I need to know everything. Samuel Morgan struggled with addiction for years after aging out of foster care at 18. According to records, he maintained sporadic contact with you until approximately 10 years ago. We grew apart, Alexander admits. He resented my success, refused my help. At 24, he met Catherine Wilson. They never married, but she became pregnant with triplets, a high-risk pregnancy. Medical records indicate Samuel was clean during this time, nearly 18 months of sobriety. Alexander absorbs this, picturing his brother fighting his demons for his children. What happened to Catherine? She left shortly after the boys were born. The delivery was difficult and post-birth complications led to prescription painkiller dependency. She signed away her parental rights when the boys were 6 months old. And Samuel? Mrs. Hendricks's expression softened slightly. He tried. There are glowing reports from early intervention specialists about his dedication to the boys. But raising triplets alone proved overwhelming. He relapsed when they were around 2 years old. Fatal overdose. Alexander closes his eyes briefly. And afterward? The boys entered foster care. This is where things went wrong administratively. Samuel had listed you as next of kin on their birth certificates, but when his case transferred between counties, that information was lost. The boys were classified as having no known relatives. Alexander's controlled facade cracks. For 6 years, they've been in the system while I've been... He doesn't finish the sentence. 5 foster homes, Mrs. Hendricks confirms. Some placements ended due to the challenge of placing 3 children together, others because families weren't equipped to handle identical triplets with trauma backgrounds. Jessica notices Alexander's hands tighten on the armrests. What about their current status? She asks, giving him a moment to compose himself. They've been at Hope Haven for 6 months, their longest stable placement. Their caseworker reports significant progress in emotional regulation and academic development under Ms. Santos's care. Before Alexander can respond, his phone vibrates with an urgent message. Excuse me, he says, stepping into the hallway. Eleanor Blackwood stands by the water cooler, elegant in a tailored charcoal suit that makes the dreary government building seem even shabbier. Imagine finding the great Alexander Reed in a social services office, she says, her voice carrying the cultured tone of old money. Quite the departure from your usual haunts. Alexander stiffens. How did you know I was here? I make it my business to know my competitors' movements. She steps closer, especially when they're making decisions that affect multi-billion-dollar enterprises. What do you want, Eleanor? I've heard about your situation. 3 little boys with your family's distinctive eyes. How remarkable. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Your board is concerned, Alexander. Your shareholders are nervous. You've been unreachable for days while Blackwood's offer gains traction. My personal life is none of your concern. It becomes my concern when it impacts Reed Innovation's stability. She examines her manicured nails. I have considerable influence with the family court judges in this district, political connections built over decades. Alexander's eyes narrow. Are you threatening me? Offering a solution. Sell me your controlling shares of Reed Innovations, and I'll ensure your custody application receives preferential treatment. She produces a business card with a handwritten number, $10 billion. More than fair market value. You're suggesting I sell my life's work. I'm suggesting you choose, Alexander, the company or the children. You can't handle both, and we both know it. After Eleanor leaves, Alexander returns to Mrs. Hendrick's office, visibly shaken. Jessica expects him to immediately resume discussion of custody options. The familiar Alexander, who approaches every problem with ruthless efficiency. Instead, he sits silently for several moments, staring at the boys' file. What do they need most? He finally asks. Not legally, but as children. What do Lucas, Noah, and Ethan need that I might not understand? Mrs. Hendricks studies him with newfound respect. Stability, patience, understanding that their traumatic experiences affect how they trust, how they learn, how they love. They need someone who sees them as individuals despite their identical appearances. Alexander nods thoughtfully. I'd like to begin the custody process, but I also want to do this right. As they leave the building, Alexander turns to Jessica. Cancel my dinner with the Singapore investors. He pulls out his phone. I need to call Maya Santos. About the DNA results? Jessica asks. About learning how to be a family, Alexander replies, the word feeling foreign, yet necessary on his tongue. Something I've never had to learn before. The stark contrast between Alexander's living space and what children need couldn't be more evident. His downtown Seattle penthouse occupies the top 2 floors of an exclusive high-rise, offering panoramic views through floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything is sleek, minimalist, and monochromatic. White walls, black furniture, steel accents. No photographs, no mementos, and certainly nothing designed for small hands or active bodies. The space feels more like a museum than a home. Impressive, but untouchable. Saturday morning sunshine streams through the windows, highlighting the emptiness of his surroundings. Alexander walks through rooms he rarely uses. A formal dining room, where he's never hosted a dinner. A living area arranged for aesthetic perfection rather than conversation. A kitchen with professional appliances that have never been used beyond coffee making. Camille Watson, the renowned interior designer Alexander has summoned on short notice, follows him with a digital tablet, already sketching possibilities. Her excitement about transforming the space is evident in her rapid-fire questions and suggestions. The East Wing has excellent natural light for children's bedrooms, she observes. We could create 3 distinct spaces that honor their individual personalities while maintaining a cohesive design language. Alexander nods absently, distracted by the message he's just received. Maya has invited him to dinner at her home to discuss the boy's needs and routines. Later that afternoon, Alexander finds himself in a neighborhood he would normally never visit, a modest residential area where teachers, nurses, and social workers make their homes. Maya's Craftsman house sits on a tree-lined street, its blue exterior warm and welcoming compared to the glass towers of downtown. The small front yard features a vegetable garden and wind chimes that tinkle softly in the autumn breeze. 12-year-old Theo, Maya's son, answers the door with curious eyes. Mom's finishing dinner. She said to let you in. The interior of Maya's home is everything Alexander's penthouse is not. Lived in, colorful, slightly messy, and undeniably warm. Family photos line the walls, homework projects are magneted to the refrigerator, and mismatched furniture shows evidence of actual use rather than design consideration. Sorry for the chaos, Maya says, emerging from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Weekend meals are a bit of an adventure around here. It's nice, Alexander says, surprising himself with his sincerity. During dinner, Alexander observes the easy routine between Maya and Theo, their inside jokes, the natural way they move around each other in the kitchen, the comfortable silences that require no filling. He finds himself asking questions about their daily life, homework schedules, weekend traditions, even the logistics of school lunches. The hardest part for new parents is establishing routines, Maya explains, passing Alexander a bowl of homemade apple crisp. Children need predictability, especially those who've experienced instability. Like brushing teeth before story time, not after, Theo adds, with the authority of someone sharing essential wisdom. And Sunday movie night has to be Sunday or it doesn't count. Alexander absorbs these insights with the same intensity he applies to market analyses. The boys each have distinct personalities despite being identical. How do you adapt routines for different children? Maya smiles. That's exactly the right question to ask. As they discuss the triplets' specific needs, Alexander's phone rings with an urgent tone he's programmed for market emergencies. The caller ID shows his CFO. I need to take this, he says apologetically, stepping onto Maya's modest back porch. Alexander, Westridge Capital is pulling their investment, his CFO reports without preamble. They're concerned about leadership stability in light of Blackwood's offer. We need you to personally reassure them tonight, or they're out. Alexander looks through the window at Maya helping Theo with his science project, their heads bent together over the kitchen table. For the first time in his career, he makes a decision that would have been unthinkable a week ago. They'll have to wait until Monday. Alexander, they're our third largest institutional investor. If they pull out, I understand the implications. Send them the quarterly projections and schedule a video call for Monday morning. As he ends the call, his phone chimes with another notification. The boys are calling from Hope Haven for their now nightly bedtime story. Alexander remembers promising to read the next chapter of the book they'd started. Without hesitation, he accepts the video call. 3 identical faces appear on screen, already in pajamas, their excitement visible when they see him. "Uncle Alexander," Lucas exclaims, "we're ready for Chapter 7. After the call, Alexander rejoins Maya in the kitchen, finding himself sharing his confusion about balancing his company responsibilities with his new commitment to the boys. "Every working parent struggles with this," Maya says, her voice free of judgment. "There's never a perfect balance, just daily choices and adjustments." "I've never had to make these kinds of choices before," Alexander admits. "That's parenthood," Maya replies with a gentle smile. "Constant improvisation." When Alexander returns to his penthouse late that evening, the design team has already completed preliminary work on the boys' rooms. In what will be Ethan's space, he finds a small action figure, Captain America, Ethan's favorite, placed carefully on the future bed. Somehow, without realizing it, he's already learned this detail about his youngest nephew. Alexander picks up the figure, turning it in his hands. For the first time, his penthouse feels like it might someday become something more than a showcase of success. It might become a home. The Children's Hospital emergency room presents a reality Alexander has never experienced: the controlled chaos of urgent pediatric care at night. Harsh fluorescent lights illuminate worried parents cradling sick children, overworked staff moving with practiced efficiency, and the constant beeping of monitoring equipment. The antiseptic smell mingles with a fear that transcends social class and wealth. Lucas's small body radiates heat as Alexander holds him awkwardly, the boy's head resting against his shoulder. Noah and Ethan sit nearby in identical pajamas, unusually subdued, their worried eyes never leaving their brother. Alexander had brought all 3 when Lucas's fever spiked during their weekend overnight visit to his penthouse, the boys' first time staying in their newly finished rooms. Dr. Patel, a kind-faced pediatrician with tired eyes, examines Lucas with gentle expertise. "His oxygen levels are concerning. We're detecting some congestion in his lungs." "What does that mean?" Alexander asks, unfamiliar with the helplessness churning in his stomach. "Early-stage pneumonia. We'll need to admit him for observation and IV antibiotics." Alexander watches as nurses connect Lucas to monitors, the boy's small form nearly lost in the hospital bed. Noah and Ethan press against Alexander's sides, seeking reassurance he's not sure how to provide. "Will Lucas be okay?" Ethan whispers, his voice trembling. Alexander wants to respond with cold probability and statistical outcomes, his usual approach to uncertainty, but stops himself. Dr. Patel and the nurses are taking excellent care of him. That's why we came here. As nurses settle Lucas into a pediatric wardroom, Alexander's phone vibrates with increasing urgency. David Chen, his COO, has called 17 times in the past hour. "Mr. Reed," David says when Alexander finally answers, stepping into the hallway. "We have a critical situation. Our security team has detected a sophisticated breach in the quantum encryption protocol. Someone's accessing the proprietary AI architecture." Alexander's mind immediately calculates the implications. Their entire competitive advantage, years of research, billions in market value, all at risk. Any other day, he would already be in a secure vehicle heading to headquarters. "How bad?" he asks instead. "Catastrophic potential. The board is assembling for an emergency meeting in 30 minutes. They're expecting you to lead the response." Through the doorway, Alexander can see Lucas's pale face, oxygen cannula in his nose, while Noah and Ethan have climbed onto the edge of his bed, maintaining physical contact with their brother despite the nurse's gentle objections. "I can't come in," Alexander says, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. "Sir?" David's confusion is evident. "I don't think you understand the severity. I understand perfectly. My nephew is hospitalized with pneumonia. His brothers are terrified. I'm the only family they have. But the company will have to manage without me physically present. Activate protocol blackout. Lock down all servers. Cut external network access if necessary." Alexander's mind races through contingencies. "And David, you have my full authority to make decisions. I trust your judgment." Alexander ends the call and returns to the hospital room, where a nurse is trying to convince Noah and Ethan to move to the visitor chairs. They can stay where they are, Alexander intervenes. They need to be close to their brother. The nurse looks surprised but nods. Very well. You might want to get comfortable, Mr. Reed. It's going to be a long night. As the hours pass, Alexander sits in the hard hospital chair, fielding encrypted messages about the security breach while simultaneously learning how to comfort frightened children. Around 4 a.m., Lucas's fever spikes dangerously, his breathing becoming more labored. We need to increase his oxygen and add another antibiotic, Dr. Patel explains, returning for a middle-of-the-night assessment. This is relatively common with pneumonia but requires close monitoring. Noah, the analytical one, bombards the doctor with questions about lung function and medication mechanisms. Ethan simply holds his brother's hand, tears silently tracking down his face. Alexander finds himself doing something entirely unexpected. He places his hand on Ethan's shoulder and squeezes gently. The small boy leans into the touch, seeking comfort. Alexander isn't sure he knows how to provide, but is determined to try. By morning, Lucas's fever finally breaks. Alexander, unshaven and disheveled in yesterday's clothes, has abandoned all pretense of corporate decorum. His jacket hangs over a chair, his tie is stuffed in a pocket, and his white shirt is wrinkled beyond recognition. Maya arrives with a duffel bag containing fresh clothes for everyone, healthy snacks, and activities for the boys. She takes in Alexander's appearance with surprise. You stayed all night, she observes. Of course, Alexander replies, as if there had never been any question, despite the dozens of messages from his executive team still awaiting responses. The company crisis? She asks, having heard about it from Jessica, who's been coordinating between Alexander's two worlds. Managed, David contained the breach. Alexander's phone rings, Jessica again. Sir, I thought you should know. The breach was orchestrated through shell companies we've traced back to Blackwood Technologies. We have evidence it was timed to coincide with your custody proceeding. She wanted to force me to choose, Alexander realizes aloud. The board is impressed with how you handled it, Jessica continues, especially Warren. He said, and I quote, perhaps Alexander has more dimensions than we realized. Alexander looks at the three boys, Lucas sleeping peacefully, his condition improved, Noah explaining hospital equipment to Ethan with invented functions that make his brother giggle, and feels an unfamiliar certainty. I made the right choice, he tells Jessica, not caring who might overhear. For once in my life, I made the choice that mattered. The exclusive restaurant occupies the entire top floor of one of Seattle's most prestigious buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcase the city lights twinkling below like earthbound stars. The private dining room, where Alexander sits across from Eleanor, Blackwood is designed for discretion. Soundproofed walls, a single table with just 2 place settings, and staff who appear only when summoned. Crystal and fine china gleam under subtle lighting designed to flatter aging faces. Eleanor Blackwood presents an imposing figure despite her 70 years. Her silver hair is swept into an elegant chignon, her posture remains military straight, and her eyes miss nothing. As the pioneer who broke the tech world's glass ceiling in the 1980s, she commands respect even from those who fear her. Tonight, she wears deep burgundy, the color of power and old money. $10 billion is significantly above market value, Alexander observes, leaving the contract untouched, which makes me wonder what you know that I don't. Eleanor sips her wine, a rare vintage she ordered without consulting the sommelier. Always the tactician. That's what I admired about you when you were just a brilliant engineer with social anxiety and revolutionary ideas. You've been watching my career more closely than you imagine. She sets down her glass with precision. Did you know I knew your brother? Alexander stiffens. Samuel? How? Seattle isn't so large in certain circles. Samuel was in a recovery program I fund anonymously. He had your brilliance, just channeled differently. Her expression softens fractionally. He was proud of you beneath the resentment. Alexander struggles to maintain his composure. Why are you telling me this now? Because this game has gone on long enough. Eleanor leans forward. Did you really think it was coincidence that those boys ended up at Hope Haven, that your board suddenly insisted you make a personal appearance there? Understanding dawns across Alexander's face. You engineered this, all of it. Engineered is such a cold word for a family reunion. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. I've been supporting Hope Haven for years. When 3 boys with distinctive gray eyes came into their care, looking remarkably like a young man I once mentored through recovery. She shrugs elegantly. I made certain connections. The hostile takeover bid? A necessary catalyst. You've buried yourself in algorithms and acquisition strategies for so long, Alexander. I needed something dramatic enough to crack that careful armor. Alexander stares at her, reassessing every interaction over the past 2 weeks. My board members. Merely concerned about your public image, which was entirely genuine. I simply amplified certain suggestions. The security breach. A controlled demonstration. No actual data was compromised. Eleanor waves a manicured hand dismissively. Though your COO performed admirably, you should promote him. Alexander's voice hardens. You manipulated my life, my company, those boys' future. I fulfilled a promise, Eleanor interrupts, something genuine finally breaking through her calculated exterior. Samuel made me promise to watch over you after he was gone. My brother built walls instead of bridges, he told me during his last attempt at sobriety. He'll end up alone with his algorithms, unless someone forces him to see what he's missing. She reaches into her purse and removes a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. His words, not mine. This was to be delivered to you upon his death, but you were unreachable, traveling in Asia when he overdosed. By the time you returned, your walls were higher than ever. Alexander takes the envelope, his hand not entirely steady. Inside is a letter in his brother's distinctive handwriting and a photograph. Samuel holding newborn triplets, his face showing a mix of terror and pride. I didn't want your company, Alexander, Eleanor says, tearing the contract in half. I wanted you to face what you've become. Samuel would be heartbroken to see his brilliant brother turn into a cold machine, accumulating wealth and influence, while his nephews bounced through foster care. Alexander reads his brother's letter in silence, emotions he suppressed for decades finally breaking through his carefully constructed defenses. You're withdrawing your takeover bid, he finally says, his voice rough. It's served its purpose. Eleanor stands, gathering her coat. The question is, what will you do now? You've built technological marvels, Alexander, but can you build something that matters? Can you fix what's broken, not just for those boys, but for all the children failed by the same system that failed you and Samuel? After Eleanor leaves, Alexander remains at the table, reading his brother's letter again. His phone chimes with a message from Maya. Boys are excited about their surprise visit. We're at your place. When Alexander returns home, he finds Maya has brought the triplets for their first overnight stay in their newly finished rooms. Lucas has recovered fully from his pneumonia, leading his brothers on an expedition to explore every corner of the penthouse that once felt too large and empty, but now seems filled with possibility. Alexander watches from the doorway as the boys discover the rooms designed specifically for them. Lucas investigating the built-in desk, perfect for his leadership plans. Noah examining the ceiling where constellations have been painted to glow in the dark, and Ethan testing the art supplies arranged on a child-sized easel. He takes out his phone and types a message to Eleanor. You were right about everything. Thank you for the wake-up call. As he presses send, Ethan notices him and waves excitedly. Uncle Alexander, come see what we found. And for the first time in years, Alexander Reed feels the weight of loneliness begin to lift from his shoulders. Alexander's home office has undergone a transformation that mirrors its owner's evolution. Once a sterile extension of his corporate headquarters, the space now shows signs of his changing priorities. Family photos have appeared on previously bare walls, candid shots of the triplets exploring the Seattle Aquarium, building sandcastles at Alki Beach, and making ridiculously messy pancakes in Alexander's once pristine kitchen. Children's artwork is proudly displayed alongside market analyses, and a comfortable reading chair has been added in the corner, often occupied by a small boy with questions about the universe or a story that can't wait until morning. Through the open door, The sounds of the boys' laughter drifts in from the living room where they're practicing their roles for the upcoming school performance. 3 weeks have passed since Eleanor revealed her orchestration of events, and Alexander has settled into a new routine that balances Reed Innovation's demands with his growing commitment to his nephews. Jessica stands before his desk, her expression concerned as she delivers news that threatens this tenuous balance. The Chinese investors were explicit, sir. Either you appear in person for the signing ceremony, or they'll take their $5 billion to Blackwood Technologies. Their cultural expectations demand the founder's presence. Alexander sighs, rubbing his temples. And there's no possibility of moving the meeting to the following day? None. Their delegation returns to Beijing immediately afterward. Jessica hesitates. The board is already nervous about your reduced presence at headquarters. If we lose this deal... She doesn't need to finish the sentence. The Beijing partnership would secure Reed Innovation's future for the next decade, establishing their AI architecture as the global standard and effectively neutralizing Eleanor's influence despite her withdrawal of the hostile takeover. And the boys' performance? Thursday at 2 p.m. The Beijing signing ceremony is at 3 p.m., 7,000 miles away. Alexander turns to gaze out the window, his reflection showing the weight of the decision before him. What would most CEOs do in this situation? They would go to Beijing, Jessica answers honestly, but you're not most CEOs. In the living room, the triplets have built a makeshift stage from couch cushions. Lucas, playing the captain of a spaceship in their school play, delivers his lines with dramatic flair. Noah, cast as the ship's science officer, corrects his brother on the scientific accuracy of the script. Ethan, the ship's artist documenting an alien world, quietly perfects his costume with colored markers and construction paper. Maya enters Alexander's office, having arrived to help the boys with their costumes. The past weeks have seen her become a regular presence in the Reed household, her practical wisdom about child-rearing proving invaluable. Something deeper has developed between her and Alexander as well, a connection neither has acknowledged, but both increasingly value. Big decision? She asks, noting Alexander's troubled expression. The biggest. He explains the conflict, the importance of both events, the impossibility of being in two places at once. Maya listens without judgment. What are you leaning toward? Logically, Beijing, the company affects thousands of employees, millions of users. The financial implications are enormous. And less logically, Alexander glances toward the living room. 3 boys who've been disappointed by adults their entire lives. That night, long after the boys are asleep, Alexander works late in his office, searching for an impossible solution. His concentration breaks when he notices Ethan standing in the doorway, clutching his blanket. "Why aren't you asleep?" Alexander asks gently. "Bad dream." Ethan approaches cautiously. "Are you coming to our play?" Alexander hesitates. "I'm trying to figure that out. There's an important meeting for my company at the same time." Ethan's expression doesn't change, but something shudders behind his eyes. "It's okay. We understand important things." "What do you mean?" "People always choose important things over us," Ethan says, with the heartbreaking wisdom of a child who's been disappointed too often. "Our last foster dad missed our school thing because of work. He said we'd understand when we're older." The simple statement hits Alexander with unexpected force. "And did you?" "Understand?" Ethan shrugs small shoulders. "We understood we weren't the important thing." After returning Ethan to bed, Alexander stays awake through the night, developing a solution that would have seemed unthinkable a month ago. At dawn, he calls David and Jessica to his home. When they arrive, they find Alexander surrounded by organizational charts and presentation materials. Dark circles under his eyes testify to his sleepless night, but his expression shows the clarity of someone who has finally recognized the correct path. Reed Innovations needs restructuring, he announces without preamble. "David, I'm creating a co-CEO position for you, effective immediately. Jessica will become chief of staff for the entire executive team, with expanded authority." David blinks in surprise. "Sir, while I'm honored..." "This isn't about honor, it's about reality." Alexander gestures to the plans displayed around them. "I've been operating under the false assumption that I'm irreplaceable. Recent events have proven otherwise. You handled the security breach perfectly without me. And Beijing? Jessica asks cautiously. I'll fly there tonight, meet with the investors personally to explain our new leadership structure, and return before the performance tomorrow. Alexander's expression softens. Some promises can't be broken no matter the cost. As Jessica and David review the restructuring plans, Alexander sends a text to Maya. Found a solution. We'll make both work. Would you be my guest at a school play tomorrow? Her reply comes quickly. Wouldn't miss it. The boys will be thrilled. So am I. Alexander Reed, who once measured success solely through market capitalization and technological innovation, feels a strange new sensation as he prepares for his whirlwind journey. The quiet pride of having finally chosen correctly. The elementary school auditorium buzzes with excitement. Parents clutch programs and smartphones, teachers herd excited children in various costumes, and the scent of freshly baked cookies from the PTA sale mingles with the distinct aroma of school gymnasiums everywhere. Warm stage lights illuminate homemade props and a backdrop painted by the art classes, a cosmic scene of stars and planets for Space Explorers, the musical. Despite his exhaustion from the 36-hour round trip to Beijing, Alexander stands tall in his perfectly tailored suit, his presence drawing curious glances from other parents. He completed the impossible, flew to China, secured the deal with a revised leadership structure that impressed rather than offended the investors, and returned with just 2 hours to spare before curtain time. Maya joins him backstage, her smile warm with something more than friendship. You made it. I promised I would. Alexander glances at his watch, a nervous habit rather than impatience. How are they? Excited, nervous. Lucas has been practicing his captain's speech non-stop. Noah is worried about the scientific accuracy of his alien analysis. And Ethan, ... She laughs softly. Ethan has been watching the door for the past hour, even though I told him you'd texted from the car. Through the curtain, Alexander spots Jessica and David taking their seats alongside Warren from the board. Even more surprising, Eleanor Blackwood slips in quietly, taking a seat in the back row. When she notices Alexander watching, she offers a small nod of acknowledgement. The triplets spot Alexander simultaneously, their faces lighting up with identical expressions of relief and joy. They rush toward him in their matching Space Explorer costumes, customized to reflect their individual characters. Lucas with a captain's insignia, Noah with scientific instruments, and Ethan with an artist's palette attached to his belt. You really came, Ethan exclaims, wrapping his arms around Alexander's waist. I promised, didn't I? Alexander replies, awkwardly returning the hug. The school principal approaches. Mr. Reed, Judge Williams is here for the preliminary hearing afterward. We've arranged the conference room as requested. Alexander nods, tension returning to his shoulders. The custody hearing, scheduled deliberately after the performance to reduce pressure on the boys, now looms large. The play unfolds with the charming chaos of elementary school productions everywhere. Lucas delivers his lines with impressive confidence, only occasionally glancing at Alexander for reassurance. Noah's scientific explanations of alien ecosystems draw appreciative laughter from the adults. Ethan, tasked with creating visual representations of the new worlds they explore, beams with pride when the audience applauds his artwork. Alexander finds himself genuinely engaged, recording moments on his phone like any other parent, tension gradually melting from his shoulders. When the final bows commence, he stands with the other parents, applauding with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Afterward, the atmosphere shifts as they gather in the school's conference room. Judge Williams, a stern-faced woman with kind eyes, reviews the case files while the boys change out of their costumes. Maya sits beside Alexander, occasionally squeezing his hand under the table when key points are discussed. The DNA confirmation is compelling, Judge Williams acknowledges, and your home study report is quite positive, Mr. Reed. However, I remain concerned about your work commitments and lack of parenting experience. Alexander feels a familiar tightness in his chest, the sensation of control slipping away. Your Honor, if I may speak candidly. When she nods, Alexander takes a deep breath. Until 3 weeks ago, I believed success was measured in market share and technological innovation. I've built a company valued at $97 billion. I've developed AI systems that have changed global communication. By every traditional metric, I've succeeded beyond imagination. He pauses, gathering thoughts that have been forming since that first day at Hope Haven. And yet, when Lucas was hospitalized with pneumonia, none of that mattered. When Ethan has nightmares, my corporate achievements offer no comfort. When Noah asks questions about the universe, my bank accounts provide no answers. Alexander's voice grows steadier as he continues. I'm terrified of this responsibility. I grew up in the system thinking I was unwanted. I built walls and a company to prove my worth. These boys demolished those walls with 3 words: "You're our daddy." He meets the judge's eyes directly. I'm not their father, but I want to be the family they deserve, the uncle their father would have wanted them to have. I've restructured my entire company to prioritize them. I'll spend my life trying to be worthy of them. The triplets enter with Maya, their expressions solemn as they sense the gravity of the moment. Judge Williams invites them to sit, asking gentle questions about their understanding of the situation. Would you like to live with your Uncle Alexander? She finally asks. Lucas, always the spokesman, looks at his brothers before answering. We belong together, and we belong with him. We just know it. Judge Williams reviews her notes one final time. I'm approving the preliminary placement with regular check-ins from Family Services. Final adoption hearing in 6 months. She smiles at the boys. Congratulations on your performance today. You were excellent space explorers. 6 months later, on a bright spring morning, Alexander stands before the court for the final adoption hearing. The past months have transformed not just his home, but his entire life. Reed Innovations has flourished under the new leadership structure. Alexander's technology skills are now directed toward a new mission, reforming the system that failed his family. As the judge makes the adoption official, Alexander looks at the 3 little boys who changed everything. Lucas, already showing leadership skills that will someday guide companies or nations. Noah, whose brilliant mind asks questions Alexander's best engineers can't answer. And Ethan, whose artistic soul captures beauty in the world Alexander once was too busy to notice. Alexander announces to the small gathering after the ceremony, the Reed Family Foundation will focus on 3 initiatives: modernizing the foster care notification system that separated our family, providing support for aging out foster youth, and ensuring siblings remain together whenever possible. Maya slips her hand into his, the engagement ring on her finger catching the light. Eleanor Blackwood raises a champagne glass in silent toast from across the room, her mission accomplished. Alexander Reed, once defined solely by the technology empire he built, has finally found his true purpose. Not in creating algorithms, but in rebuilding the family that was nearly lost, and in the process, helping repair the broken system for others. Some connections, he's learned, transcend paperwork and system failures. Sometimes family finds you when you least expect it.